Originally, I had this saga split into 10 episodes, but I find things are being drawn out too much for my tastes, and I'm losing my enthusiasm for making so many videos. So let's expedite things a bit, shall we? When we left off, I had finally sold my house, though not without a lot of unnecessary drama, including a last-minute assessment that could have derailed the whole process, and a bit of a nervy experience loading my belongings on a pallet into a FedEx truck. Now it's time for the cats and I to leave the country, so let's pick it up there. I have two orange cats. This could be the start of either a comedy or a horror show, depending on which brain cell is firing in the cat's head on any given day. I like my cats, they like me, they're my family. So as much as I appreciated the multiple offers I got from people to adopt them, they were coming with me. I acquired the necessary certificates from the USDA. That's a requirement for entering Europe and has to be done within 10 days of departure, all thanks to a service my vet's office used. I also ordered in the carriers that the airline required, and my mom flew with me so she could take one of the cats as her carry-on, and I took the other as my carry-on. Had my maximum luggage allowance filled with clothes and cat supplies, including their favorite cat beds. We arrived at the airport early, which turned out wise given that getting through security took a while. I requested a private screening because they require removing the cats from the carriers to send the carriers through the x-ray machine. However, after waiting for about a half hour, TSA still hadn't sent anyone for the private screening. So, I took the cats through in my arms one at a time, but Ludwig nearly made a great escape in his panic due to his one brain cell being overstimulated. The carrier came out of the scanner just in time, sparing us all the great disaster at the hands of either lazy or understaffed TSA. We had a short flight into DC after spending some time in the pet relief area, and then a longer flight from there to Brussels. The first flight was fine, minus both cats projectile vomiting during landing, and one of them also unloading from the other end. We spent some time cleaning up in the bathroom between flights and then settled into the main flight. Or at least we tried. We ended up with a stereotypical Karen type, seated briefly near us, who took issue with the location of the cat carrier. You see, United decided to cram 4 seats into the space for 3, and there were bars right in the middle of the foot space, preventing the carrier from being placed in its intended location under the seats. Ms. Karen was incensed because she claimed the carrier was infringing on her foot space. After a very heated exchange, a flight attendant finally relocated Miss Karen so that we could all enjoy a peaceful flight. To this day, I harbor regrets that neither cat chose that moment to projectile vomit. Instead, they waited until landing again. Once we landed, we stopped at a pet store for supplies and then headed to a dog park to hang out while we waited for our hotel room. Why are we waiting for a hotel room, you ask? Well, I ended up arriving a week early in the Netherlands. Most of the funds for my house purchase were coming from the sale of my house in the U.S. That sale happened while I was on the plane. With it being an overseas money transfer, I needed to leave a few days to give the money time to transfer. With it being a large sum, a bit of extra time was left to make sure it had time to clear any issues that might arise with the FDIC or European banks. Speaking of issues, if you've watched my other videos in this series, and you should if you haven't already, you know issues have been the norm for this journey. During the flight, I got a series of messages from my realtor. We had made it very clear that the signing needed to be as early in the day as possible, so the money would have time to transfer out by the end of the day. My banker was standing by to make the transfer, but the buyers kept pushing back the signing time later and later. Come 4 p.m., they finally got around to signing. But bank transfers have to go out by 3 p.m. The other problem was I had agreed to pay closing costs, and we discovered I had been overcharged. However, the buyers were insistent that they should get that money, which would go directly into their pocket, which would essentially reduce their purchase price. That's not how that works. My realtor had to do some hardcore negotiating to prevent the buyers from walking away, while still ensuring I got the money back. I did not take that plan to nap on that flight, and for a while there, the cats weren't the only ones sick to their stomachs. By the time we were all settled in the hotel, everyone was arriving at work in the US. So, let's get that money transferred, eh? Problem is, I hadn't received the money in my U.S. bank account, money that should have arrived the previous evening immediately after the signing. My closing agent started making phone calls. The loan agent for the buyers blamed their closer. Their closer blamed their loan agent. My realtor blamed all of them for incompetence. More phone calls ensued. Promises were made. Promises were broken. Threats of elevating complaints to higher authorities were made. The end of the day arrived, and I still did not have my money. At this point, they were in violation of the sale contract for holding on to my money, and I was starting to really worry. I'm homeless at the moment, in a hotel room with my mom and two crazy cats throwing litter everywhere, with a pallet of my remaining belongings rapidly closing in on the Netherlands with no place to put it. If I don't get the money in time, I don't get my house, and the people selling me the house also won't get their house. At that stage, a lawsuit for failure to transfer funds isn't going to get me out of a hotel into a home, and it's sure not going to help the poor people selling me the house. After a fitful night of sleep and a few hours of stress in the hotel, waiting for the U.S. to wake up, I was able to get updates from my closer. The money was to arrive around lunchtime in the U.S. I notified my banker to be prepared. Lunchtime came. Lunchtime went. Still no money. My closer made some more calls and was informed it should arrive at any moment. Now, I can drag this out a bit more, but I'm a nice guy and I'm not going to make you suffer as much as my realty team and I did. Right around 2 p.m. Minnesota time, 2 days later than planned, the money arrived in my account. That left my banker 1 hour to make the transfer, and he sprang into action and got the funds out just before the 3 p.m. cutoff. That man is a champ, and he deserves at least a raise. With that hurdle cleared, and assuming the money arrives in time, I theoretically had a house to live in. And that meant I needed furniture, specifically beds. Now, the Dutch love IKEA, so as part of my efforts to fully integrate and save some money, I dragged my mom to IKEA for a day of shopping. We took our time, probably a bit too much time if you ask my mom, and loaded up as much stuff as would fit in the rental car. However, I was pretty jet-lagged and stressed at that point, and I managed to forget where I parked when leaving IKEA and ended up walking through the entire parking garage multiple times until we discovered there was another level of parking below the street that the elevator oddly would not go to. And there, lo and behold, was my car. After a much more relaxing weekend with the money arriving Friday at the Dutch notary, Monday, also known as moving day, arrived. During the short drive to my new home from the hotel, my cat Johan graciously blessed the occasion by peeing in his carrier, leaving an arid scent wafting over the rental car and my new furniture. After all the bad luck I'd had, I was relieved to see the pallet was being unloaded from the FedEx truck right as I arrived. Things are looking up! The final walk-through of the house went well, things were ready, and the signing at the notary went quickly and without issue. With keys in hand, I headed back to the house to unload my belongings, where my mother, my cats, and everything else was waiting. When I walked into the house, my mother was sobbing. Wait, what? The cats had gone missing. I kid you not. I leave my new house for 1 hour, and my cats have vanished. There was nothing in the house, not even the suitcases, which were still in the hotel in Kent because my car was full of boxes from IKEA. There was literally nowhere in the house for the cats to hide. The only thing we could figure was they had escaped out the bathroom window. Now, I know cats can turn to liquid, but even this opening seems suspiciously small, and my cats really aren't the type to escape so quickly after moving in anyway. We searched that house high and low for the cats with no signs of them anywhere. I searched outside. I talked to the neighbors who also searched the neighborhood. Finally, I had to step away and go back to Kent to get the suitcases and the rest of the IKEA stuff, but it was a really depressing drive. I love my cats. I didn't want to move here only to be alone after all we'd gone through. When I got back, there was still no sign of the cats. I spent some more time outside searching along with the neighborhood kids. When my mom called me inside, she thought she'd heard a meow. But there's so many neighborhood cats, it could have been any cat. To be continued.